of Assembly Member Jones asking, given the windfall gains that land and property owners benefit from when transport infrastructure is built, could a tax on those gains help pay for the infrastructure?
I mean, one of the issues that I think we were able to address in the Commission, having made this suggestion, a proposal that the full suite of property taxes be devolved to London, is to open up the wider question of how those taxes are operated and whether there might be an argument in the longer term for moving to different basis of valuation, which would address this issue, by the way, or, you know, that among the smaller revenues or other reforms that might be introduced as part of this change, new ways of capturing windfall gains from development could be addressed. So I think there's a lot to be said for having forms of taxation, property taxation, that allow the city to capture the uplift that comes with new development, which is in a sense built into property prices, to as they rise, so as to reinvest it in the city's infrastructure. And actually, many property owners, I suspect, if there were a rational way of doing it, wouldn't disagree with it. So I think the straight answer is I'm in favour of inventiveness in the an innovation in the use of the property tax base once it's devolved, if it were devolved.
I don't know if you know, but Lord Adonis told the Transport Committee last week that there's limited scope for another business levy because it's already been done for Crossrail 1. But he'd read your report and thought there was potential for getting really serious development gain out of new housing. So the door is sort of opening, isn't it?
It is, and I think new housing, of course, we don't really address this in the report because it's an extant reform. The the new homes bonus is a slightly odd way, in my personal view, of effectively allowing councils to keep the growth in the council tax that comes with new homes. Now, you know, in another world, they just have kept the growth in the tax base, but it's been done through a grant, and a grant which over time is top-sliced out of local government's funding. So, just aiming off for, you know, it could be done differently and probably rather better. I think that the new homes bonus does mean that we are going to see, whether we don't know whether the new homes bonus will provide an incentive, but it's certainly going to provide London with a new revenue stream where housing is built. So I think capturing the growth in the tax base from council tax, business rate, stamp duty, the full suite of these taxes, allied to Section 106 and SIL type powers, does offer London's government the capacity to be much more creative in how they're operated. And I gave a hint about this when I was speaking at the beginning. I mean, the current configuration of stamp duty and the top of council tax is clearly not what anybody would have done if they'd been planning it from first principles. And it might well be possible to rejig these taxes so that there is greater certainty for owners, for occupiers and investors, and so that the tax would operate more rationally than those taxes operate more rationally than they currently do. But more generally, as London developed more, there's no doubt that capturing the growth in the tax base yield would produce a revenue stream which could undoubtedly be used for investments such as major transport schemes. It can only be used once, obviously, but it could be used.
Well, I think Crossrail estimated that their new line will lift land values along the whole route by 5.5 billion. So it's obvious. I mean, you do mention in your report undeveloped sites.
Yeah.
Has there been any feedback on that? Has anybody with any power shown interest in that?
We haven't had any interest. Well, you'll be encouraged to hear nobody again has said no to us. They haven't said absolutely not. And the reason that we wanted to include the idea of more radical forms of potential tax base as a possibility, either like a signed income tax would be a possibility in the longer term, is that we wanted to stress very clearly that we wanted, as far as property taxes are concerned, and capturing the benefits of economic activity through growth in the tax base, to make the system, or to give the potential for more creative reform than has hitherto been the possibility.
Gareth started asking, and Andrew were asking about what the Mayor could do, and if you had, if you wanted to draw him up a list of things to do immediately on this to actually get all of your report going, but obviously I quite like the aspect that I'm interested in as well. What would you tell the Mayor to do?
Well, I would very much hope that the Mayor would continue to lobby his good contacts at the top of government to introduce the kind of reforms here suggested. There's no doubt that the Mayor of London has enormous, as I said earlier, salience and power at the top of government, this one and his predecessor, and they have great access and can use it accordingly. If you ask yourself in any government, does the Mayor of London have greater purchase in the political system than most cabinet ministers? Well, the answer is they do. Okay, and therefore, I think I would hope that the current Mayor, and indeed any candidates who come forward next time for other parties, will press their party and their senior members at the national level to make these, what I consider, modest reforms for the better government of London.
I wanted something a bit more. I'm just imagining, he's got this report. He spent a long time on it. It's a good report, something for everybody. But lobbying, is that really enough? I mean, should he be, as Andrew suggested, starting talking to other cities and trying to get together a coordinated effort to do this?
Well, I think he, the Mayor, current
Mayor, chatting to his pals doesn't really cut it, does it?
Well, like all of us, in the sense we have to work within the political system, lobby for the things we want, and clearly even members of the cabinet have to lobby for things they want. I mean, we all have to lobby for things we want of each other. So, I've said earlier on, I do think there'd be a good reason for common cause being made with the other cities. I think it would be excellent if the Mayor lobbied his colleagues at the top of the current government. And I mean, the real thing we have to do is to keep it live, because even if there's a broad agreement that the relatively modest proposals in the Finance Commission report should go ahead, nothing happens fast. It would happen.
The Green Group are now out of time as well.
Okay.
So, Assembly Member Qureshi.